Hello? Hello?
Podcast Network Asia.
What's going on? This is Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed.
I said, give me a hell yeah!
Hey, this is Zeta Zay.
Hello, WWE Universe in the Philippines. This is Charlotte.
Talent is not sexually transmitted.
You need to go back to the drawing board because your game absolutely sucks!
Hey everyone, this is Jeff Cobb.
I'm Lewis Howley. I'm Sam Spoker. We are pretty deadly. Yes, boy. Yes, boy.
Hello, my name is Ilya Dragunov, the Czar, the NXT UK champion, and you're listening to the Wrestling Podcast.
Listening to the longest running weekly episodic Filipino wrestling podcast. This is the Wrestling Podcast. It's just me, all alone, no Ro, no Chino, no Rowan ASH on this audio-only episode. Life got in the way for everybody, but I've got a special guest joining me on this audio-only episode. Godkiller Dabid Ravena is joining me for a special interview right here on the Wrestling Podcast. Easily one of my favorite characters in the local scene. I was so excited to do this interview. So huge thanks to Ro and the rest of the MWF team for making this interview happen. We get into the origin story of the Godkiller as a character, those wacky vignettes that came out in late 2017, early 2018. We talk about how he got into wrestling to begin with, how sobrang napariwara siya from the fandom, and it took years before he made it back into the wrestling community, and how that all worked out for him. He also shares a lot about his workout and his health tips for somebody who got into wrestling in their 30s, because that is no easy feat, let me tell you that. Not that I'm a wrestler or anything, pero alam natin na mas mahirap na talagang maging physical and active when you're in your 30s. So all of that and more, pag-uusapan natin yan with Godkiller Dabid Ravena right here on the Wrestling Podcast. But before we get there, today is as good a time as any to be part of our growing patron community. So if you want to be part of the Wrestling Podcast patron group, all you have to do is to check out patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast. Just sign up for as low as $5 or however much that is in pesos now, to 80, to 90, 300, di na rin natin alam. So just sign up over there. You get to be part of our watch parties. You get to be part of our pasabays. Lalo na Black Friday is coming up real soon. So go and be part of all of that good stuff over at patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast. All right, here's our main event. It's my interview with Godkiller Dabid Ravena. It's been a while since we've had anybody on the audio-onlys as an interview guest, so I'm really thrilled to have this guest from the local wrestling scene. He represents World Underground Wrestling Philippines and MWF. Please welcome to the Wrestling Podcast for the very first time. I've been a huge fan of this guy for quite a while. Godkiller Dabid Ravena.
Thank you, Stan. To all the listeners of the Wrestling Podcast, thank you for your continued support, most especially to the Filipino crowd, lahat ng laging sumasama sa mga shows, nagpapakita, nagsumusuporta sa amin, whether it be MWF or WU or any other local promotions in the Philippines. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me, Stan.
How's it been since nag-restart yung local wrestling scene? Kasi diba, the pandemic really did a number on the entire industry, and then here we are, nakakapag-perform na kayo. You have several shows under your belt na in the post-pandemic landscape. So, kamusta naman?
Just to put it in a very single word, reinvigorating siya. Lalo na yung para siyang kickstart na eto na kami ulit, nakikita na kami ulit. Hindi na lang kami puro mga post about our thoughts on wrestling events or kung ano yung mga nangyayari sa States or kung ano ba yung mga sa tingin namin, dream matches namin. Ngayon nakikita nyo na kami, nakakapag-perform na ulit kami. And recently, we just finished Action Novela a couple of days ago. I think this action novela is action-packed, and there are several things that the Philippine wrestling community would be looking forward to coming into Noche Buena. I think that will happen December 11. Pita Theater. See you there, Stan. I always admire, or I always see the Wrestling podcast people there together with all of the wrestling supporters. So be seeing you also there.
Yeah, sobrang showbiz ng answer natin. Kakatapos na namin ng tapings. Sigurado kami na ito yung may expect nyo. So it's nice to know na you guys are getting into that spirit of really
True, true.
promoting MWF regularly, and it's nice to see you as one of the fixtures talaga on the roster. So with everything that's going on, how are you able to balance na yung ginagawa mo? Because when I first spoke to you after Republica, you mentioned that you work in cybersecurity, and I'm calling you right now from your office, but you're in your corporate life, and then you have your weekend warrior lifestyle as a wrestler. So siguro to get the ball rolling, how do you balance everything?
Simple steps, just one task at a time. Hindi mo na may tatanong, Stan, the reason why I started going into wrestling was for my health. I am a fan of the old school aggression era, very late attitude era, and then I got cut there. Hindi ko na alam kung paano sumikat ng todo-todo si John Cena. Sorry sa mga nakakapanginig, pero I started uh, being in the corporate world and then enjoying the vices of the corporate world. And then I suddenly discovered nagkaroon kami ng fire drill. Nasa 30th floor ako noon, pababa, namatay na ako sa 26. So I said, hey, I said my lifestyle needs to change, and then somehow nagkaroon ng opening with a previous wrestling promotion. I tried there and then I fell in love with it and everything came into fruition. So to answer your question, it's always been one task at a time. From Monday to Friday, I am this corporate guy. Saturday, I allow my mind and my body to rest, and then Sunday, I'm Godkiller. That's it. That's the gist of everything.
So talagang weekend warrior lifestyle, no?
Yes. Admittedly, may mga times na kung may sisingit ko, after work, I go to the gym or I try to meditate. I try to do yoga also. Anything that can also help me perform pagdating ng Sunday. Kasi ang hirap naman na kapag Sunday, dun ka lang magiging super active, masakit sa kasukasuhan.
Yeah, yeah. I get that. Ako rin, like, as I got into my 30s, parang na-realize ko na ang hirap kapag couch potato ka and then you don't really work
True.
out. You need to move pa rin kahit papaano eh. Kasi if you don't, it's really gonna mess your body up. So I absolutely agree. Let's go back to that thing you said na you were a wrestling fan from the ruthless aggression era up, and then yun na nag-stop na dun in the early 2000s kasi that's around the time I came into the fandom.
There you
So
go.
bakit ka napastop? What, did you go to college? Did girls enter your life? What happened?
Paano ba to? Medyo sente yung sagot ko, Stan, ah. I fell in love with wrestling because of one guy, Eddie Guerrero. And that was my bonding moment with my dad.
Okay.
So nung nag-champion si Eddie Guerrero when he beat Brock Lesnar, we were celebrating at home and Eddie was our guy. Yun yung bonding experience namin with my dad. And then so when my dad passed away, sabi ko, I'll just focus on work. I'll focus on making my financial and then my family be stable, and then dahan-dahan hindi ko na malayan, dahan-dahan ko let go yung wrestling. And then bumalik na lang siya nung nalaman ko na meron palang wrestling promotion sa Pilipinas. I agree with what you said kanina. Being in your 30s, couch potato masakit, and uh, masakit na siya mag-bump. So as much as possible, ang diskarte sa wrestling is you tell your character work, you project yourself to the audience. You do your matches as much as possible with less bumps. You tell your story with less bumps. Yun na yung diskarte ko ngayon as a performer in my 30s.
Yeah, see, this is how I know that we picked the right people to bring on the podcast because this podcast is a very pro Eddie Guerrero show. Kami ni
There you
Ro,
go.
he's our all-time favorite wrestler, and to know that you're part of the club as well, it warms my heart. And I'm sorry to hear about your dad passing. Na yun din
No
pala yung
worries,
reason
no
na
worries.
napariwara ka from the fandom. So, are you saying na it was the existence of the local scene that brought you back into wrestling?
Actually, a part of it, yes. Another would be my health, and then siguro I've been watching PWR. I think late 2010s or parang pa-end na. And I've always been fascinated. Nakikita mo si JDL and then si Ken Warren. Now, you actually see them backstage. You get to talk to them, mingle with them. Paano ko ba masasabi to na hindi ako magiging sobrang fan? Isa to sa mga super positive na nakita ko na nangyari after COVID. Before, you have island mentality. Like, ito yung malupit. Kami lang yung sisikat. Ito lang yung magandang performers. And then the Taisho Invitational came in. And then for the first time, I saw PWR talents, MWF, and then WU talents going at it. Hindi ko alam kung pandemya lang ba ang rason, pero makita mo yung tatlong companies represented in one event, napaka-overwhelming niya, napakasaya niya. Tapos as a wrestling fan, mapapaisip ka, could there be more? Could there be another hidden door na mangyayari in the future? Meron bang chance na makakalaban ni, let's say, Cuatro, si Razael from World Underground, or maybe Madrigal versus SJM. I'm just thinking out loud as a wrestling fan in the Philippines, but all in all I'm hoping for is sana yung fans ang manalo. Lagi kasing sila naman talaga dapat eh.
Mhm.
Di ba?
It's very interesting that it was the community talaga and yung pag-usbong ng promotions dito na nakapaghila sa'yo pabalik sa wrestling. And I guess my question about you in particular all this time is, where have you been? Kasi, you say you've been going to the shows. I never encountered you until the Godkiller vignettes first appeared in 2017 or 2018. So, you didn't go through yung boot camp ng PWR, di ba? Did you ever give it a go?
No. Sabihin na lang natin na when the boot camps were being posted online and people are being invited over, I was this very skinny kid from Cebu. I had my doubts. I was telling myself, hey, I can't do this. And then when AOW was started, yung drinking buddy ko at the time, sabi sa akin, pre, tigil na natin tong kakainom natin tsaka mga kagaguhan natin. Subukan lang natin to kasi we were both doing boxing and then Muay Thai already. And then we stopped that and then somehow we landed into wrestling. We saw Chili Willy there, we saw Machine there, and then we started thinking, iba to parang mas physical, mas hand to hand. So doon ako na-expose. Hindi ako na-expose sa kahit anong bootcamp. AOW lang ako nag-start, and then doon pa lang sa bootcamp na yon or sa training ground ng AOW sinabi, hey, treat yourself as a performer. Ikaw, binibenta mo yung sarili mo and you cannot sell yourself as a wrestler if you're a skinny dude. So perhaps kaya hindi mo ako nakikita dati because I avoided being seen until the time na sinabi ko sa sarili ko, malapad na ako, baka naman pwede na akong makita in a video or in a vignette. And then that's what happened with the AOW launch with the Godkiller, the guy that swirls whiskey slash, hindi ko alam kung bakit ganun yung baso ko noon at the time, pero yun yung iniinom ko.
Whiskey ba yun? It was a Moet. I was just rewatching the vignette earlier
Diba?
before we started.
Diba? We were telling the audience that this guy drinks and then he fights, but as far as I know, that was like a dark liquid. Hindi ko naman din natikman eh. Hindi
mo ininom?
Ko lang naman. Hindi ko ininom ba? Tsaka ininom yun.
I told you this when we first met. Sobrang favorite namin ni Anthony Coelho, one of our friends from, friend of the podcast, from Smart Henry then. One of the things that caught our eye in that video from the very beginning was how you would order by pressing your index and your middle fingers on the rim of the glass. And we were like, nobody does this. Who does this?
Yes. To answer that, my dad does that.
Oh, okay.
That's something that I got from my dad. Like semi-suave James Bond dish down na way to order. So sabi ko, gawin ko na lang din. Wala namang mawawala. And then thank you kasi napansin pala siya. It's something na, I agree naman. When I order whiskey, I don't tap on the glass anymore. But maybe that's something that they did on the 80s.
That was nice. It's a nice tip of the hat, I guess, to your dad.
Yes. Thank you.
So I want to ask about one more thing dun sa vignette because I was looking through some of the older Godkiller posts, and at the end it says, "I'll beat you, your friends, and the rest of this bar." Is that a parody of Ann Curtis?
To be quite honest, a little bit. It was a little bit of that parody, but when Godkiller was launched as a character, the main story behind, or the main motivation was of that guy was, he was a rich guy, a ano ba, well endowed financially, not there.
Okay, so hindi natin alam
Iba
kung
yun,
malaki
iba
yung
yun.
edits niya.
Oh, hindi yun Ano lang, born with a silver spoon, but he's not ano ba, he's not satisfied with the life that he has, and then he just wants to fight. That was the idea behind it. So bar fights, friends being ano ba, challenge and whatnot. That was supposedly the the base point for the character. But now with MWF and all of the minds behind the storytelling of MWF, I think uh, they were able to do something with the character na kahit ako hindi ko inasahan. The feud that I have with management, the I don't want to spoil anything,
Yeah,
but
syempre, syempre.
uh,
Don't,
di
please.
ba? Yung ano lang, nakakatuwa lang isipin na ito yung foundation na binigay namin doon sa character, tapos yung branch out ng ideas, parang mas matutuwa pa yung mga wrestling fans. Yun na lang.
So when you say God killer, 'di ba? The idea is that you're going after someone exalted. So in this case, sino na yung nasa kataas-taasan na gusto mong patumbahin?
I think obvious siya pagdating sa MWF management.
Yeah, so for MWF, it's management. How about outside of MWF? Kasi you don't just perform with Manila Wrestling Federation, 'di ba?
Yeah. So with MWF, it's management. With World Underground Wrestling, I think you've seen Invasion and what happened with Fogo. So with the character itself, I think we will also be the God Killer will also have a match with Fogo and the people behind World Underground Wrestling. With our third promotion, let's see. Hindi pa natin sila nakakadaupang palad eh. Pero hopefully we get to work with them soon.
When you talk about these promotions, normally in the independent scene, di ba, wrestlers have a home promotion. So which one do you consider yours?
World Underground. I will always be the guy that wears WUW on his chest. I may remove the shirt, but that does not give insult to my uh, ano ba, my home base. That is, sabi nga dun sa Invasion eh, this is my home. And Sanigo was just invading on it. Um, I would like to thank, or I would like to take this opportunity for giving, or for World Underground Wrestling for giving us a home. Hindi ko alam kung I'm just gonna say the names. So you have Machine, you have Zera, you have Razael, and then Ken Cypher, which all originated from Art of War Wrestling, and then somehow we were the ones that got established in World Underground, and that in itself was the focal point to the partnership that we have now, and that in itself is amazing. Yun lang.
Yeah, I want to know more about that kasi I didn't know about World Underground Wrestling until you guys established your presence here in the Philippines. So, can you tell our listeners more about the brand? Sino ba talaga yung involved dito? Kasi it's a larger network of independent wrestling outside of the Philippines, diba? I think it was explained to me na the home base is in Austria, tama ba?
Uh, Actually, this is how it was explained to me. All right, the main guy in the Philippines is Saint John Martin.
Mhm.
Saint John Martin coordinated with Fogo, the head of World Underground Wrestling Japan. And then after that, the connections came in. You have the Austria people, humongous, and then that grew also to the North America, which is Super Beast and also Ron Von Hess before, which actually performed already in the Philippines. That collaboration in itself built World Underground Wrestling as it is today. How we got involved on it, before it was a conversation between Machine and then also SJM. And then SJM asked Machine, who are the people that you trust? Who are the people that you can actually bring in, the talents that you can harness from AOW and then bring over to World Underground? That led to a conversation between all of us. Isa-isa kaming in-interview ni SJM, and then nilatag niya. Sabi niya, this is my plan. These are the things that we can offer you. We also have future partnerships with the people outside the Philippines, yung iba't ibang branches. And I think right now, nakikita niyo na siya. Nadala na namin dito si Super Beast, si Ron Von Hess, nadala na rin namin si Humongous, si Sick Bubblegum, Betty Boa, nadala na rin namin si Fogo. So hopefully when we have like a full-on World Underground Wrestling event, makita nyo sila ulit sa Pilipinas, and who knows, baka kami naman yung makita nyo outside, mag-compete din kami sa Japan or sa European counterparts namin, who knows. Ganun siya binilt eh. So there's an exchange of talent, and then who wins? The fans. Yun lang.
Yeah, yun naman talaga yung goal, di ba? That
Yes.
for one thing, that we're able to give the scene the best type of show that we can deliver, and second, for the local talent to really get exposed to more experienced veterans, to get to the international stage, to get to the places where sina JDL, sina Ken Warren have been.
Yes.
But to bring it back to you guys, and sa World Underground, sabi mo na when World Underground Wrestling mounts a full-on event, does Invasion not count as a full-on event?
Yes, that already counts as a full-on World Underground event. Kung mapapansin mo nga, hindi ganun kadami yung World Underground Wrestling events.
Yeah.
The reason behind it is that when I think when Fogo and then also Martin collaborates, gusto nila yung mga matches, yung bakbakan, yung action ng World Underground, kahit na pa isa-isang show lang siya, may impact siya sa crowd. If you're able to see Invasion, I think we did just that, and we were successful in defending or fanning off that very Invasion. Hopefully by next year, we also have 1 or 2 more shows, or maybe a maximum of 5. Who knows? Let's see na lang kung ano yung magiging conversation between the Japanese counterparts and then us.
So ano yung nauna? Yung pag-form ng World Underground Wrestling or your group making your way over to MWF?
World Underground muna. Tapos, nagkaroon ng conversation. It was me, Machine, SJM, and then I believe at the time you have Mr. Lucha, Sir Tarek, I forgot the others, but kami yung nag-sit down, and then sabi namin, is it okay if we have an exchange of talent, and then we have competition here in Brawl Pit Bulusan, and then that's it. Isa yun sa mga, I think, success stories when it comes to World Underground and then MWF. Aminado kami, hindi ganun kadami yung shows namin, but all of the World Underground talents, or most of the World Underground talents, are being utilized and being featured in MWF. And that in itself, paano ba to? Nakaka-overwhelm siya, at the same time nakaka-excite kasi na-expose kami, 'di ba? Hindi namin kailangan hintayin yung ganung
In a good way, I hope.
gap. Yes, it is very in a good way.
I think it's great that talent exchange is happening kasi it also gave MWF a deeper roster. Ako kasi napansin ko after COVID happened na there were some talents from MWF who decided to leave the promotion, diba? A lot of moving parts happened, and we don't need to go into detail about all of these moving parts, but it's essentially different groups came together to form this new coalition in the MWF roster. So I'd like to think it worked out for the better.
Yes, you're absolutely correct there, Stan.
I want to know what it's like to start wrestling training in your 30s. Kasi when you think about wrestlers who start relatively later in life, people like Batista, who got into it in their 30s, people like Diamond Dallas Page, who was in his late 30s when he took his first bump, mas masakit ba compared to the rest of the guys when you reconvene the following Sunday?
Sige, ganito na lang. Hindi na lang next Sunday. The following day na lang. Parang nagkakaroon ako ng ritual na kapag katapos ng show or kahit anong training, as much as possible, pagkakauwi ko, inom na lang ako kagad ng tubig or kahit anong pamparelax. Iniiwasan ko mag-pain reliever para kinabukasan na well-rested pa rin ako kahit paano. And then, tama ka, para sa akin, medyo may kasakitan na mag-bump on your 30s, and I don't take as much as I used to yung mga early 30s ko. And then when you talk to the new talents, the shirt guys
Yeah. Sina white
in
shirt, black shirt.
yeah, yes. Parang pag nagte-take sila ng bump sa training, napapaisip ako, parang mali yung ginawa ko. Dapat nag-start ako ng mas maaga. Pero all in all, ano ba? Just give your body a lot of rest, plenty of fluids, iwasan yung mga masasamang pagkain, and then also mindset. Thank you for bringing up Dallas, kasi siya yung reason bakit nagyo-yoga ako. I started yoga maybe mga 2-3 months ago. Dati nag-try na rin ako, pero I thought it was very sissy. And then now I'm beginning to see the benefits of it. Mas nagiging flexible na ako, and then somehow, oddly, mas mataas yung talon ko nung nag-start ako mag-yoga. Hindi ko alam bakit.
I want to bring it back to the fluids. Kasi sabi mo, you were
Okay.
drinking with yung regular na kainuman mo. And then you guys decided na, magbagong buhay na tayo. Let's get into
Yes.
fitness. Let's get into wrestling. Is that drinking buddy part of the MWF or the WU roster right now?
No, he actually went his separate way. Hindi na siya nagbumalik sa wrestling. Um, when it comes to those fluids that I was talking about, it was all the hard stuff. So whiskey, rum, yung mga masasamang iniinom. Tapos lagi pang napapadalas din yung mga fatty na pulutan. Staying out very, very late. Then, basta hindi siya healthy na lifestyle. Those are the things that I needed to remove from my system. But admittedly, I'm still a whiskey fan. Kung may mga whiskey event, I still go there. And that's still my preferred drink. Pero when it comes to training, kapag talagang malapit na yung show, those are the things that I avoid.
All right. I was gonna ask if you still indulge in your favorite vices. Ako rin, in my 30s, I've also had to cut back on some of this stuff kasi medyo napalakasin yung pag-inom ko when COVID happened. So, I can relate on having to impose these limits on yourself kasi for your health din naman, di ba?
Yes. Parang iba na siya pagdating mo ng 30s. Sa lahat ng mga listeners, hindi ko sinasabi na lahat ng 30s nakakaramdam na ng kasukasuan problems. Pero in preparation for the life begins at that number,
Yeah.
sana mas matino na yung lifestyle natin. Yun lang.
Eto, let me ask you this about the double life that you lead, diba? Kasi you work corporate during the weekdays and then on the weekends, you're the Godkiller. Do the people at work know about your double life and do they go, to si David, wrestler to, herder?
Actually, yes. And it led to very interesting conversations at work. Again, I'm in the security/network kind of ordeal, and then
Cybersecurity, just to be clear.
Yes. When darating yung mga engineers or mga tao dito sa opisina, sasabihin sa'yo, sir, hindi naman po namin kasalanan na hindi gumana, blah, 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 blah. Ba't ganyan nyo ako kausapin? Kasi baka suplexin nyo ako. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. This is still a corporate environment. Kung gusto nyo mag-try out kayo sa World Underground or sa MWF, sige, doon natin gawin yung mga kinakatakot nyo. But from Monday to Friday, I'm still this guy na kailangan niyang kausapin, and then kung may mga tanong kayo, I'll be more than willing to address them. Kung isa pa siguro na about sa wrestling would be the cards. Big shout out to our partners that created the cards, Fight Sport Manila. Ang ganda nung card namin. And then dito sa opisina, sinasabi nila, okay lang ba na bumili kami ng card? Go to the website kung available pa siya. And also to the listeners of this podcast, please support the local merchandise, not just the cards, but all of the offerings that we have for all of the wrestlers then. That will also help us create more interesting merch for you guys. And tulong-tulong lang.
We're taking a break from my conversation with Godkiller Dabid Ravena so we can hear from our other podcasts on Podcast Network Asia. Has being a wrestler improved dating prospects? Kasi diba, here in the Philippines, it's still one of those uncommon things. And I'm not sure if that's something that the local wrestlers say when they meet someone new, let's say on Tinder or Bumble or whatever app, diba? So, like you and I don't really know each other very well. I don't know if you're single or not. So I'm gonna assume that you are and ask if it helps the dating prospect. And if you're not single, what does the significant other think about you being a wrestler?
All right. So, Stan, you're gonna know me a little bit. So I am single. to help with or to answer your question about the dating site, it's somehow 50-50. Nakita ko yung sarili ko sa Bumble, pero hindi ako. Ang nakita ko yung profile pic ko as Godkiller.
Kinatfish
May
ka!
nakita ko. Hindi ko alam kung catfish ang tawag doon, and I don't really care, sorry. But oh, ano pa ba? May mga kakilala ako ng mga performers na ang ginagawa nila sa mga dating profiles nila is nilalagay nila sa baba yung, by the way, I am a wrestler. Here's my page, or here's my social media, whatever. Um 50-50 kasi I think nakakatulong yun. They get to meet girls, and then these people, they may not go out with them, but at least they visit the page, and they might ask, hey, can you follow? Can you subscribe? Or whatever. Right? And then the other 50 is when you, ano ba, when you seal the deal. Pag nakita mo na si girly sa meetup, oh, by the way, I'm a wrestler, I can defend you, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe that seals that gives you an advantage getting into whatever that is that you really want. So, yun lang naman yung sa akin.
So has it actually helped you out? Yan ang tanong. Kasi you say that it's already come up in a conversation with a woman. So has it helped you seal the deal?
I neither confirm nor deny any statement made in this podcast. But I think that already answers your question kasi nga AOW days nasa 300 likes lang ako ngayon, almost papalo na ako ng 700 without even doing anything, without paying for advertisements or anything. And then when I go through the dynamics kapag nire-review yung isang Facebook page, makikita mo doon the most viewers are women, age blah blah, and then ito yung age bracket na sinet ko dun sa ano ko So I think that already answers your question.
All right. Well, props to you kasi relative to, I guess, majority of the wrestling scene, you do have one of the better defined physiques.
Thank you.
Kasi nga, a lot of us, hindi naman natin full-time job yung wrestling. So it's also understandable that not everyone can look like a Mustafa Ali or a Bobby Lashley, diba? Or a Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
It's just really the reality of the situation. So I guess for you, how are you able to keep up that physique despite your work during the weekdays and then yung training mo?
Just going through the basics lang, Stan. So after ng work, I try na makumpleto ko yung either weight training, yoga, tapos Saturday. The meditation that I do is mainly reading a book, thinking about what I read, and then listening to self-help. And then Sunday, ready na yung katawan ko, yung mind ko, okay na siya. For the other integral parts, so I try to, eat very healthy, hindi pwedeng puro karne na lang, and then iwas sa soft drinks. Alam na natin to yung mga bagay na laging sinasabi sa mga health commercials, ganun ka boring yung ginagawa ko. Ang hindi ko na lang ginagawa is I don't do meal plans. So I just tell myself I can only eat from 12 noon to 6 p.m. and then I can eat whatever but still in moderation. Yun lang.
All right. For the people who have seen Godkiller at the wrestling shows, whether that's MWF or WU, you come across as very brash. You like to run your mouth. Clearly a heel, but before your wrestling career started, did you always think na, I want to be this type of heel character? Or is there a part of you that has always wanted to be a babyface then?
Thank you, Stana, for answering this. Kasi before with with AOW, we were actually given this freedom to create your own character, envision who you really are in the ring or even outside the ring. Hindi ko talaga ma-place yung sarili ko kung saan. Ang lagi kong sinasabi, I can work either. Parang yung ang tawag doon, in between guy, like parang
tweener.
Tweener. Laging sinasabi sa akin, dude, that's a very safe answer. Just pick a lane and then just go with it. Yun na yung ito yung isa sa mga thankful ako with MWF management. They were the ones that really told me, hey, I think Godkiller as a Godkiller should be this brash, should be someone that does not take crap from anybody. And then sabi ko, can we run with it? Can we try and do it? And then little by little, pag nakikita ko yung script, nababasa ko yung kailangan kong gawin, naiisip ko yung mga dapat kong sabihin, and I was like, asshole nga talaga siya. Yun yung yun yung built niya.
I mean, I don't think that my best friend who's like the best guy in the world will call himself a God killer. So yeah.
Isa pa yun, di ba? Diba? Tapos Somehow when yung mga ganitong interactions, I get to do podcast, and then I get to do ano pa yung other partners natin, si Kayfabe Cafe, and then they tell me, how is it na nakakayamot ka pero gusto naming makita yung pagkayamot mo. Hindi kayong nakakasuya na kailangan mong murahin yung crowd, kailangan mong insultuhin masyado yung kausap mo. Ang lagi ko kasing sinasab sa sarili ko lang, Stan, the best insult that you can give in a promo is the truth. 'Di ba? Yung isang promo with Sunny Go, I am still the best thing that ever happened to the company. Tapos ilalagay niyo ako sa isang posisyon na pwede akong matanggal, either me or Rex. That in itself, that catapulted the character. Ipapartner mo kay Rex Lawin, which is really strong, and then already an established character in world and in wrestling Philippine local scene, and then me parang sige, let's see what this guy can do, and then that's it. Kapag nakukuha ko yung script doing the show for MWF or with WU, lagi ko naiisip, kapag tapak ni Dave sa labas, pag makita na ako ng crowd, I need to be Godkiller. I need to be Dabid Ravena. And then that guy does not give a crap kung ano man yung iniisip ng crowd sa kanya.
Yeah,
diba? Hindi,
totally, yeah.
Hindi, diba? Hindi pwede, eto na lang, you saw me perform in, in Peta Theater, that last show with Rex Lawin. If you're a good guy, you will not dish a commissioner the way I did.
Yeah.
You will not throw a shirt at him like I did. You won't even touch a fan's phone and just throw it to her face, di ba?
Yeah.
Yung mga small stuff na yon, sinasabi ko, hindi ko kailangan ng sobrang arte na heel work. I'm just going to be an ass to anybody. That's it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Diba? I played a heel character then in the local scene, diba? And I found so much fun just playing the most asshole-ish version of myself out there. So I can relate to what you're saying na when you step between those ropes or when you step out of the curtain palang, you have to be this douchebag, and you have to do all the things that are within your brand, within your character, to get the desired reaction, which is for people to hate you, for people to boo you. Like some of the stuff I did, I would makikibura out ako ng mga snacks ng tao. Kasi gutom na ako in real life eh. Mambubura out ako ng chips or ng popcorn from them. Diba? Tapos I'll be bastos about it because I'm an asshole. But deep inside, I'm also just really hungry. So thanks to all those fans na nakibura out ako ng food back in the day. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. You mentioned Rex Lawin. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. What was it like being his final opponent for the time being?
Honored. One word, honored. I've always felt that match, the Ravena Lawin match, should have belonged with World Underground Wrestling. But looking back, I think it's a good platform. Marami pa rin tayong pwedeng mabuild na story around that. Hindi lang naman I can think of several scenarios wherein, let's say, Veronica, Godkiller, and then Sunny would be in a ring together. We can do promos about how they actually screwed me and Rex. Diba? Going into the match, I knew that Rex will bring in his years of experience, his technical know-how, all of the hard-hitting stuff. And the only thing that I can bring is, I just want it more. Yun lang yung lagi ko iniisip eh. You're gonna beat Rex Lawin. You want this more. Kasi kapag hindi mo siya natalo, sesante ka na. Diba? True, I quit MWF. Pero to not fight a Rex Lawin caliber opponent, I will not be Godkiller if I don't take that opportunity. So I gave it what I can. I provided the fans a lot of booing moments at the time, and I think after the match, yun na yung doon na siya na-establish na, okay, kupal si Ravena, anong magagawin niya kakupalan next? Diba?
As we begin to wind things down here, I want to ask about the insights you've learned from the vets in the locker room, the JDLs, the Crystals, the Ken Warrens of MWF, even yung founders, sina Veronica, sina Tarek Altayech, sina Will. Has there been any piece of advice that has stood out in your career to date?
Yes, yes, Stan. And tatlo yung sasabihin ko. Medyo, kung okay lang medyo mahaba ito
Yeah, go ahead.
So ang una is, if you still have butterflies before the event, during the event, and then after the event, that means that you really care. Hindi kasi may mga performers na nabasa ko na yung script, kausapin ko yung opponent ko, and then 10-15 minutes upo lang ako, and then I morph into this wrestler when I'm in the ring. Parang ano na, parang mechanical na sa kanila, wala na silang nararamdaman pa. Tapos after ng show, okay, I get paid, blah blah blah. 'Di ba? Isa sa mga natutunan ko would be, if you really care about how the people will react, kasi it should be them that wins, hindi naman ikaw eh. 'Di ba? It's always the fan in them. Lalo na ngayon may mga nakikita na kaming kids. You have the parents really inviting or encouraging their kids na not to look at their phones anymore, look at the action in the ring. 'Di ba? Ang sarap nung pakiramdam na yung bata parang, oh my God, that guy is lifting someone bigger. Maybe I can do that also in the future. 'Di ba? Yung butterfly na yun na you're instilling an image onto a kid na he can be this powerful person. He can overcome adversity. Yung sorry if I'm thinking out loud kasi ganun lang talaga yung isa sa mga teachings na ano na binigay sa akin eh. Have butterflies kasi hindi lang naman lahat ng nanonood diyan wrestling fan.
Yeah.
May mga gusto diyan. Tapos pangalawa, na tinuro sa akin, always be open to new possibilities. Hindi ibig sabihin na ang nag-train sa'yo ay isang Fabio Makisig, ay isang JDL, ang isang Chili Willy, or ng isang machine, or sino mang tao na nagsabi na mas matagal na sila sa industriya. Dahil nga mas matagal ka sa industriya, dapat lalo mong masasabi sa sarili mo na this can transform. The fans 10 years ago or 20 years ago will not be expecting the same things now. The product needs to evolve, the business needs to evolve, you need to evolve. And then if you're stuck into this character na okay, Godkiller is an asshole, hanggang dun asshole lang siya forever. And I'm telling you right now, I think hindi lang ako asshole forever. So that in itself, you need to be open na okay, ito yung mga kailangan kong gawin, kailangan dahan-dahanin natin siya. And then third, and the most important for me is to always stay humble. May mga taong, I'm always thankful kapag may nagbe-message sa akin, nagsasabi na, hey, I want you in our podcast. Can we do an interview with you? Can we use your shots for like merchandise? Kasi all of these things that are coming right now, how sure are you that it will also come after tomorrow or the following day or any other day? Kung ano yung pinapakita mo ngayon, nagugustuhan nila. And then the least that you can do is to offer your thanks, to be humble about it. Ano ba? Nung kinausap mo ko after ng PETA show, I'm not kidding. I've always seen you as the guy that does the suits. 'Di ba? I'm also a suit corporate guy. So I understand yung tabas, kung paano ba siya tamang isuot. 'Di ba? I geek out kasi. May mga specific times that I geek out, and then I think I said this to you na, sorry, I don't know how to converse with you properly. And then we started that conversation, and I think we were laughing about it afterwards. Same approach that I had with Ken Warren, with JDL, with Fabio, with Robin Zane, and Machine, Chili Willy. Hindi ko sila alam i-approach, but as far as I know, I came in there humbled. I was ready. I came in there with an open mind, and then I just said to them, hey, this is the character that I'm trying to build. Maybe we can have an exchange of ideas on how I can do it better. You know, Those
Hey,
three things.
I appreciate all of the insights that you shared, and from the moment that I saw you live, I knew that there was something really intriguing about the Godkiller character, and then getting to have this one-on-one conversation with you on the podcast really affirms na masarap katambay itong si David Ravena. So I just want to say thanks, man, for taking the time to do the podcast, to unmask yourself a little bit for our listeners, and to really just get your story out there. Kasi nga, one of my questions early on was, where the hell have you been? So it's nice to finally have you on the pod after you came to be dito sa local wrestling scene, and I wish you nothing but good vibes and good times throughout the rest of your run, however long it lasts.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stan. And then, kung pwede, ano lang, request lang sana ang wrestling podcast magkaroon din kayo ng mga on-site. I think people in Cubao Expo would be really grateful. Makita natin si Stan, si Roan, si Romeo. Maybe kasama ako, maybe kasama ibang talents, umiinom lang tayo doon. And I think that would be a very, very interesting conversation.
Yeah, we used to do that stuff back in the day. We did that for episode 300 back in 2019. So, yeah, syempre COVID times a little bit different. Pero tingnan natin, if the pandemic finally dies down sometime next year, maybe it's something that we can work on, and we can invite you guys over. We can have a moet and then order it like this, with our index and middle fingers pressing against the rim, just for shits and giggles. Is there anything you want our listeners to check out before we let you go?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Stan. So basically, Godkiller David Ravena, please spell it as is: Delta Alpha Bravo Indigo Delta. Ravena is just like the show in, I think, the 20.
Like the basketball players?
Yes, like the basketball player, correct. Follow the Facebook page of David Ravena, as well as World Underground Wrestling Philippines, World Underground Wrestling, the yellow logo Facebook page. We also have some interesting stuff there going about. And then also Manila Wrestling Federation. Again, we have Action Novela. We have the December 11 Salo Salo, if you will, Noche Buena. And then also to all of the Philippine wrestling supporters, please check out Gank, our local subscription. When anything wrestling, please do so. Also follow Kayfabe Cafe, Fight Sport Manila, and then also Wrestling Podcast. Anything, and I should say this is a community. So follow one, kindly follow everything also, and that's the best that we can hope for everything Filipino wrestling. Sana umusbong yung industriya, and then sana makita nyo naman kami sa TV, hindi na lang kami puro mga type sa YouTube videos lang.
Last question na. Bakit Dabid yung spelling ng David?
Okay, all right. Inside scoop. Ang sabi kasi before, when we were creating a character, try to make it as Filipino as possible. So that in itself is the reason why it became a B. Yun lang talaga siya, right?
Okay.
Ravena came from that show in early 2000s, the Mulawin versus Ravena. I was even trying to pitch before that maybe I'm the lost brother of that basketball player, pero it didn't work. So I got stuck with the name, and then somehow it became relatable. So all in all, it was a good silver lining.
All right. Thanks, brother.
No problem. Thank you also, Stan. Please, all the Philippine wrestling supporters, I only have one word: thank you, and continue to support Philippine wrestling.
Thanks so much again to new friend of the podcast, Godkiller David Ravena, for that really fun conversation. I'm so pumped to catch him and the rest of the MWF roster in action on December 11, MWF Noche Buena. And if you see us at the show as well, please say hi. Don't be a stranger. And it's nice that we get to have these real conversations once again in real life now that we're mostly vaccinated and boosted. So sana tuloy-tuloy na to, and let's just keep each other protected. Let's stay safe, especially as the holidays kick into high gear. Now, so much is happening as always in the world of wrestling. You've got Survivor Series War Games happening at the end of the month. You've got AEW Full Gear also happening this month. And syempre, you can be part of all the fun in the Wrestling Podcast community by being a Wrestling Podcast patron. But if you want to keep the conversation going on social media, pwede rin naman. It's at Wrestling2XPod on TikTok and on Twitter. And on Facebook and Instagram and Spotify, it's at Wrestling Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating, especially on Spotify. And if you want to hit us up individually, it is at Monday Night Rowan, at Chino Supersized, at Roiswar, and at _StanC. Huge thanks to the PNA team for all of the work that they do behind the scenes. And thank you to every patron, listener, subscriber, viewer, commenter, everyone that's part of the Wrestling Podcast community. On behalf of all of my co-hosts who are not here, my name is Stan C, reminding everyone to keep your masks on, if you want to remain safe, and to get your vaccines and boosters if and when you can. Wrestling Podcast out.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.